Have you ever picked up a product or read a company's annual report and you see all this glossy stuff about how they're saving the planet and you just wonder, is any of this real or is it all just really, really good marketing? How do we actually cut through all that noise? Well, today we're going to dive into exactly that. We're looking at something called the Global Reporting Initiative, or GRI for short. It's a framework that's all about bringing some serious honesty to corporate sustainability.
Okay, so first things first, let's just lay out the problem. I mean, the biggest challenge for anyone who cares about this stuff is simply knowing who to trust. It's incredibly easy for a company to say it's green. Proving it, that's a whole different story.
And this really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? Whether you're an investor or you're just at the grocery store trying to make a good choice. When a company uses these big, vague, feel-good words, how are you supposed to tell the difference between a genuine commitment and just a clever marketing ploy?
Let's just make this super clear. Imagine two companies. Company A's website just screams, "We care about the planet," which, sounds nice, but what does it even mean? It's basically meaningless. Now Company B, they give you the numbers, cold, hard data. CO2 emissions down 15%, water usage down 10%. Which one inspires more confidence? It's a no-brainer, right?
And that whole tactic from Company A, it actually has a name: greenwashing. And it's such a huge problem. Not just because it's misleading, but because it totally undermines the companies that are actually putting in the hard work and making a real difference.
So how in the world do we fight greenwashing? Well, we need a system. We need a shared set of rules. A common language, really. And that is exactly where the Global Reporting Initiative comes in.
Now, the GRI isn't some new thing that just popped up. It was founded way back in 1997 with one clear goal: create accountability. And fast forward to today, it is pretty much the gold standard. We're talking thousands of companies in over 100 countries all using this same framework. That scale is what gives it its real power.
Okay, here is probably the best way to think about it. You know how companies have super strict, standardized rules for how they report their finances, right? Well, GRI applies that exact same level of rigor, but for their impact on the world, their environmental, social, and governance impacts. It's not just about the profits anymore. It's about the planet and the people.
And a really critical concept here is something called double materiality. It basically means it's a two-way street. A company has to report on how sustainability issues like, say, climate change might impact its own financial performance, but, and this is the game changer, it also has to report on how its own operations are impacting the world around it. That second piece is what forces companies to look outward.
So, how does this whole system actually work? Well, it's pretty brilliant, actually. It's built on this modular structure with three main parts that all fit together. Let's break them down really quick.
First, you've got the universal standards. Just think of these as the ground rules, the foundation that everything else is built on. These are the core principles that apply to every single organization, no matter what they do. This is where they have to be transparent about their basic structure and strategy.
Then, on top of that foundation, you have the sector standards. And this is where it gets really smart. Because let's be real, the most pressing sustainability issues for an oil and gas company are going to be completely different from those for an agriculture company. So these standards drill down into what really matters for each specific industry.
And finally, you get the topic standards. This is the real nitty-gritty stuff. This is where you find the detailed reporting requirements for specific impacts like greenhouse gas emissions or water usage or even labor practices. When you put all three of these layers together, you get this incredibly comprehensive picture of a company's total impact.
Okay, so that's the what, but let's talk about the so what. Why does a bunch of reporting standards actually matter in the real world? I mean, how does this stuff jump off the page and create actual, tangible change?
There's this old business saying that just says it all. What gets measured gets managed. As soon as a company is forced to actually put a hard number on its carbon footprint or its water usage, that issue suddenly becomes impossible to ignore. That simple act of measuring is always the first step toward actually improving. And the results are, well, they're pretty powerful. For one, having verifiable data is like kryptonite to greenwashing. Two, it gives investors the clear, comparable information they need to put their money into companies that actually align with their values. And maybe the most important part, it drives real change inside a company by shining a huge spotlight on where the biggest problems are.
And the process itself is really just common sense. A company starts by figuring out what topics are most important or material to their business and to their stakeholders. Then they go out and gather the data for those topics. And finally, they use the GRI standards to report all of that information transparently, so anyone can see it. And here's the fantastic real-world example of how this works. So through its GRI reporting, the consumer goods giant Unilever made this totally unexpected discovery. They realized a massive part of their product's environmental impact wasn't from their factories. It was from all of us at home using hot water to do our laundry. That single insight that their biggest impact was outside their direct control led them to innovate and push entirely new cold wash laundry detergents. That is a perfect example of reporting leading directly to game-changing innovation.
Now, we have to be realistic here. The GRI is an incredibly powerful tool, for sure, but it's not a silver bullet. It's not some magic wand that fixes everything on its own. It really relies on all of us to actually make it work.
The strength is obvious. It creates this amazing common language for transparency and accountability. But here's the key challenge. A report is just a report. The data doesn't do anything by itself. It's up to stakeholders, and that means customers, employees, investors, activists, all of us, to take that data and use it to hold these companies accountable. And this is really where you come in. We all have a role to play here. As a consumer, you can start looking for and choosing to support companies that are this transparent. As an investor, you can demand this level of data before you put your money down. And as an employee, you can be a voice inside your own company advocating for this kind of transparency.
So I guess I'll just leave you with this final thought. In today's world, where this level of transparency isn't just possible, it's pretty much essential, if a company isn't willing to measure and report on its true impact, you really have to ask yourself, what exactly are they trying to hide?